Club Room Backstage. Anja Schneider is talking to Damian Lazarus, one of the biggest visionaries in our scene.
I've always thought that the best music comes through times of economic hardship and political unrest, and that's generally when the underground starts to really kick into play, you know. I don't think we've seen the worst of times yet. I think we're going to have some much more difficult days ahead, unfortunately. But I think that we just have to try to stay positive, try to continue to be creative, spend this time, you know, getting back into, you know, reading, you know, books, getting inspired by, you know, old movies, or, you know, checking in on like old music, maybe some like genres of music that you always thought that you wanted to check out and never really had the time, you know.
I'm a very lucky person today because I have one of the most important and charismatic figures from the electronic music scene at the Club Room Backstage studio. And with the most warm words, I welcome Damian Lazarus.
Oh, hi, Anja. That's very nice of you to say.
Another guest who needs not really an introduction. Around since the 90s, from London, ready to take the world. Let's say it like this. Started as a journalist at Dazed and Confused, then worked as a super successful A&R at the label London Records. Then started really fast his label City Rockers with enormous parties during this time. And 2004 was the launch and the year of the legendary Crosstown Rebels and Rebellion label, which are still loved until now. And I don't have to name the great parties he's responsible for. Day Zero, Rebel Rave, Get Lost, to name a few, which shown us a complete different vibe and quality of a party because of the locations and the whole staging. Damian Lazarus is the biggest storyteller in our scene, with parties and, of course, his amazing Les Pot series, DJ sets, and now with his second album, Flourish, back on his label Crosstown Rebels. Okay, I can make this list longer and longer and longer, but I'm very proud and happy to sit here with him. Hey, Damian, how are you?
Well, what an intro! I think we've just done all the time that we had.
I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, you're around since a long time, and there's a lot of stories about you. And I think I have to name a few of them.
Sure.
But how have you been the last months?
Up and down. I think, like most people, very. Anxious and feeling the weight of the world and the problems that exist out there. But at the same time, been looking for moments of hope and optimism. But I haven't been bored.
Well, you live in Italy in a wonderful landscape, and you have a family with 2 young kids,
yes.
Which is not something where you can board.
Never a dull moment, no. But no, it's been very nice to have the time to spend with the kids. Especially, they've really responded well to that. Actually, I was worried that with the schools being closed, that their levels of growing and learning would be curtailed, but actually I've been seeing them really flourishing and speaking a lot of English and Italian, and they're like sponges, kids, aren't they?
Yes, of course, they're your kids. But it's so nice. I mean, it's not nice, but everyone has the same problems. I had the same. Homeschooling was for me the biggest challenge, because it's really something where I'm not made for it, honestly. But I also read, because you live in Italy, that you produced your album during this time, or the last things, which I find really respectful, because not everyone had during this time the potential of creativity, because there was a lot of depression or like a dark hole suddenly for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky because I guess I decided in advance of COVID beginning that I was planning to start writing a new album. So one slight correction, is actually my 4th album, because so the second solo album was Damian Lazarus, but my 4th album because of the 2 Ancient Moons albums.
Yes, you're right.
But of course, with the Ancient Moons, it was pretty much like a made-up band, but it was essentially me. So it's 4th album, but there you go. Anyway, so yeah, I think I started to feel the need and ideas flowing to start writing a new album towards the end of last year. And I knew that I was going to have a very busy start to the year. I was going to be in South America for most of December and January. So I decided to take off the most amount of time I'd ever taken off, and that was going to be like just under 2 months from the beginning of February. Little did I know that it was going to end up being the whole year. But yeah, I had plans to start writing the album, and I guess by the time that the first kind of lockdowns began, I was already like deep into it. So I just figured, like, I'm just going to continue and just keep working, and pretty much treated it like a 9-to-5 job, to be honest.
So you really had a daily routine for this, because this was for me very difficult during these times to have this.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I had a real focus, and I was very determined to write this music. And of course, at the beginning, nobody was quite sure how long it was going to last or what was going to happen. So I just kind of ploughed ahead. And of course, then once I finished, there was the question of, well, what do we do now? I mean, do I release it this year or wait? And I just figured that, fortunately, touch wood, I'm a pretty busy, DJ. So it's not like I needed to release an album in order to put a tour around it, to get more bookings and stuff. So I figured I would be busy anyway. And then I just thought, well, I guess people at home, they need something to listen to, and I guess I've made this, and I may as well put it out now.
It's quite interesting, because in the description of your album, I read that Flourish should give us a bit hope and offer us a glimpse of a new world living in and surviving for, which is exactly fitting into these dark times we've been in.
Yeah.
So did you know this before?
Well, I think that at the beginning, a lot of the ideas that that were coming to me for this album, for the new music, were pretty dark. I was having some existential issues. I was wondering why the world is in the state it's in, and is there actually anything we can do about it? Should we just give up? And just things like climate change, and the fact that so many people trying to tell us that it doesn't exist, and problems of the world, without COVID, that was just going through a bit of a dark time. And I think I started to write some pretty dark music, and I was like heading back into my old drum and bass roots and getting a bit dark. And but then the ideas for Into the Sun, the current single, came to me, and I just started to feel there was a glimmer of hope. And if something like that, which is about, the wonders of feeling the sun in your face, and they've got that summery vibe, and, that loving kind of feeling. I figured if that was going to come to me out of all this dark stuff that was, that preceded it, then there was some hope. And I guess that's where the idea of Flourish came to me, because I just figured, well, out of all this darkness, we're going to have the opportunity to reset, to take stock of where we're at as human beings, and think about how we can improve ourselves and the lives of people around us. And then, I started to feel a little bit more optimistic that maybe it's worth fighting for.
But it's interesting that you say you had a feeling that you was writing more dark music, because when I am listening to the album, for me it's really diverse. It has, of course, all these influences you mentioned, but for me maybe more jazz, a lot of trip hop from the early days, breaky stuff, not really drum and bass so much, but all in a very, very modern approach. I really like it. It's really on heavy rotation on my player at home. So it's not a copy of the old heroes we had. Sometimes you can hear this, when you have like your old hero and you're copying it. It's more for me like a translation in your world, which was you living with your parties and everything, which makes it really special and unique for me. And so for me, it's even timeless. So it was not actually something what is really dark. And it helps, of course, during these times, but I think it's really giving hope sometimes.
Thank you. I think that, I love to produce music. I don't think many people know that about me, because usually the focus is on the parties and running around the world playing music to people. But when I'm home, there's nothing I like better than to be tinkering around in the studio and experimenting with some ideas. And so the fact that this music kind of actually came together quite quickly, it was actually something that surprised me, because the previous albums have taken well over a year to produce, and I've been but I guess I was quite flamboyant in my ideas with those ones because I was working with orchestras in Mexico and Qawwali singers from Pakistan and Moses Sumney and various other people. So with this project, because we weren't allowed to move around the world, and I just decided that I should just focus on, just my sound and what I can do in the studio. And I had some help with Paolo, who engineers with me, and he's also my tour manager. So and he lives just around the corner from me. So we were literally just in the studio every day. Yeah.
But why we had to wait 10 years? Which is a long time.
Well, no, like I say, we didn't really. In 10 years, I've actually produced 4 albums. So that's
of course, with the other one, the solo album, which is I mean.
Well, the first album, Smoke the Monster Out, in 2009, was. I'm not sure how people perceive that record these days. I mean, sometimes I might put it on, and there's some things I love about it. There's some things I hate about it. But it was a real trip for me because that was the first time that I had the first opportunity. I kind of felt I was ready to really express myself, and I really threw in the kitchen sink into that project. Even there's a Scott Walker cover version. There's actually some like drum and bass jungle samples in there, and there's a track called Lullaby, which is really weird, and there's all this like strange music and a little sampling Fagin from Oliver Twist, and I was like just throwing in all my ideas. And I think with that album, I was very conscious that it shouldn't be directed at the dance floor. I wanted to be true to myself, but I knew at the same time that was going to limit my fan base, it's going to confuse people.
But for me, sorry to say this, when I look at you, and it's for me really respectable. It must be a challenge because you're around since 20 years. You are staying constantly cool, which is quite difficult in our scene.
You might say that.
You know what I'm saying.
Thank you.
And you're remaining the vanguard of our scene still. So how much is challenging you? Because it's really not often that you have this. You have all these kids coming up. They're super cool. They have new ideas. They're brilliant. And to stay so long and so important and relevant, is this a challenge? Are you thinking about this, or it's just?
No. I don't think about it, but I'm aware of it. I think one of the things that keeps me, let's say, fluid is that running the record label, because I'm speaking with so many young up-and-coming producers and artists that are sending me their music and looking for advice. And so I'm, whilst I'm kind of lending a hand to up-and-coming people, they're also kind of keeping me fresh and updated with what their ideas are. And I don't know, I think that I've always tried to be like a bit of ahead of the curve, so I'm never very satisfied with what's happening in the now. So, for example, as a DJ, you're playing promos and demos well up front before they're released, and then by the time they get to be released, you're kind of over that, to the next thing. And then with certain genres or passing fads in our music, let's say, I'm always trying to kind of be ahead of that, and so when something's currently cool, I've usually already kind of had a moment with it.
But at least you know it. This is wonderful.
I know it, but I don't capitalise on it because I think that's always been my kind of the thing that hasn't really worked out, because I don't really think about music in terms of commerce. You see, so I'm more just trying to be ahead of the game and just try to direct music in a certain way. So when something is like suddenly really hype, I've already kind of been there and done it, and I'm like, I don't want to be seen like the guy that's now trying to cash in on something that he actually had a part in helping to create.
I want to talk with you about this later. I have some, but mostly you discovered these new kids on the block. I remember, Jamie Jones, to name only one. They were all, first of all, they came to you, and this is quite interesting because this is why the 10 years are still so in my mind. I remember 10 years when you had Smoke the Monsters out, which was released on Get Physical. Now you put Flourish back on Crosstown Rebels, and I remember remember 10 years ago in the interview in my radio station, you said, no, I'm not doing this on my label. I want to, I need the freedom that someone takes all this stuff with the marketing. Now you're back on Crosstown Rebels. Why?
Well, actually, there was another reason for that 10 years ago. And that was that year, as you say, I'd started to work with Jamie Jones, Seth Troxler, Art Department, Maceo Plex, and Denise Curtel, all pretty much in that same year. And I'd signed out, with the exception of Seth, I'd signed albums from pretty much all of those artists. And I felt that if I was to release my album that year as well, then the focus of my label, my team would be naturally they'd want to put a lot of importance into my album as being the boss. You know what I mean? So
yes.
I decided
other people just do it, unfortunately.
I decided that it was a good thing for me to do, to basically say to the other artists that actually I'm not going to release on my label this year. I'm going to let someone else do that because I want to focus on you guys. I did just get the rights back to Smoke the Monster out from Geffen.
There's a lot of potential there. Yeah. But the album is great. So talking about team and survive, I mean, we are all hit by the pandemic, but I know with your parties, you are like a big party entrepreneur. Can you say this? Or you did the best parties nowadays. And I just saw 2 days ago the announcement on your Facebook site that Day Zero in Tulum is going to be cancelled. So how much did this hit you, and how much the company, the team, how was that for you?
This year's been devastating to the team, really. I mean, everybody is really feeling the effects. We're trying to keep a brave face on it, but it's very demoralising because we just don't know currently, when we can return to some kind of normality, or if that will ever happen. So yeah, we were one of the first party organisers to get hit with a big cancellation of a big event, and that was Get Lost Miami. I personally hadn't arrived in Miami at the time that we had to cancel it, but the rest of my team were. We'd already spent a bunch of money, and we didn't have insurance, against anything like this. Unfortunately, I only know of one organisation that had pandemic insurance.
And if you have a pandemic insurance, it's really funny. At least in Germany, they say no, we're not paying because it's not COVID. Right. So it's really crazy things, insurances.
So we'd already spent a lot of money on preparing this, and we were actually celebrating a big one at Get Lost, and we had a brand new location, which was absolutely unbelievable. So it was a really big deal. I had Kuden Dorfmeister booked, and a bunch of other people. It was 70 artists or something over 5 stages at this time. So we were all really excited about it. And then it's all the beginning of, actually just backtracking, just prior to that, whilst I had taken off all of February and March, my last, I did go and do 3 shows in February, all around fashion weeks, Paris, London and Milan. And it seemed that everywhere I was going, people were kind of getting sick, and cities were announcing they're about to lock down straight after I left. I was worried that it had something to do with me. And then, of course, so Miami, I guess it was around the very beginning of March, they started to get word that, America's going to get hit with this virus very soon, and things are not looking very good. And every day we were like, well, what's going to happen? What do we do now? So, of course, we'd sold, thousands of tickets, and then, the new location was in the city of Hilaire, which is just outside of Miami-Dade. So the authorities there actually announced that they were going to close down the city, and we were done. So, that was a really, really difficult announcement. But then we had the one after that was supposed to be Get Lost at Sonar. Off Sonar, and that was going to be the first time we were going to bring that to Barcelona, so we're all really excited about that. And then that didn't happen. And then the second year of Day Zero, Masada in Israel, was supposed to happen at the end of September. We hadn't actually announced that, but as far as my team's concerned, this is what we've all been looking forward to. And I guess the next one is January in Tulum, and Yeah, well, I just looked at the situation out there, and I just figured like it's a difficult one. I'll tell you why. Because right now, Tulum has nobody with COVID in the local hospital.
Really?
Yeah, nobody. And there's a bunch of people there. It's been like the hotels are pretty full right now. People are partying. Things are like not 100% normal, but relatively normal. And Zamna, who run the other big events there, they have like 4 or 5 different locations where they run their events over 2 weeks. They're planning to carry on, and I'm hoping to go there myself, to be honest. But as far as Day Zero is concerned, I just didn't feel that it was a responsible move to put so many people in the jungle together, and it was a very, very difficult decision. But then I was talking to some friends and agents and promoters, and like looking around at the diary, and I thought, okay, look, Coachella is scheduled for the first 2 weeks of April, which I'm playing on. Whether that's going to happen or not, we don't know. It's probably unlikely, to be honest. No. But at the moment, it's in the diary. And then in Tulum, they have this thing called Art With Me, which friends of mine run. It's like a mini the art festival in Miami, London. So it's like a mini one of those. And then the week after that, there's the 3 Points Festival in Miami. So I figured, okay, so maybe we could jump in there. And I saw that it was Earth Day on the 22nd of April, and I thought this is
This is quite important for you.
Yeah, this is a good omen for us. So currently we're pegged in for the 23rd of April. I don't know whether it's going to be possible to do it or not.
But did you get any help from the government?
No,
nothing. No. So how difficult it was? I mean, you couldn't hold the whole team, because I mean, if you look even at this productions, what you were planned for this year, or this is like you have big team, so you can't really get them on hold. How this affected you psychological ways?
It's been tricky. I started a weekly team like Zoom meeting so that we could all kind of share our worries and our disappointments, and then and then that dropped to every 2 weeks. But I was just finding that we were just kind of covering like the same ground. It's like no change yet, So everyone's been very patient, and I worry for my team because everyone needs to make a living, and we all work in an industry that's not currently economically happening.
Yeah. But how much do you see all these cultural projects, especially your parties, they give people also hope. It's a really good place to get energy, people using this, not going out and blah, blah, let loose. It's something what they really need even for their daily life. Do you think this is... society is collapsing without all this, when it's not going to happen for another year? Because we all need these spaces, we need this. Yeah,
well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I did hear yesterday from pretty good authority that most large events through the bigger party organisers are looking now to the back end of 21. So we could find ourselves, twiddling our thumbs for another year. So I think that is a dangerous... place for a lot of people in our world, and I really hope that people can hang on in there. And but I don't really know what the suggestion is. I don't really know what people need to do. There's it's all kicking off in the UK right now because one of the government ministers was on TV this week being asked specifically about the nightlife industry, which is something that they've completely ignored. And her suggestion was we're going to now help adults redefine their careers. So if you're in the nightlife industry, forget about it, and we're going to try and make some suggestions to you for other career moves you can get into. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this has also happened to us. Even, my family was like, what are you doing now for a job? I mean, I said, hey, I can't do another job. I worked 20 years for this. I'm not giving up to do something now. This is really crazy. Well, how the government treat us, all of us. It's
ridiculous. But you're very lucky, in that you have a great studio and you have a podcast and radio shows.
Still.
Yeah.
Donate. No. No, of course. I mean, we all get really creative now. There are coming new ideas. But the thing is, what do you think? I mean, there will be a massive change in the society, definitely. But do you think also the music will change after this?
I hope so, because I do. I have been feeling that it's been getting a bit stale recently. I don't know about you, but I feel that we need some new life injected into house and techno and electronic. I think that this is. I've always thought that the best music comes through times of economic hardship and political unrest, and that's generally when the underground starts to really kick into play.
Absolutely.
So this is. I don't think we've seen the worst of times yet. I think we're going to see have some much more difficult days ahead, unfortunately. But I think that we just have to. We have to try to stay positive. Try to continue to be creative. Spend this time, getting back into, reading, books, getting inspired by, old movies, or, checking in on like old music, maybe some like genres of music that you always thought that you wanted to check out and never really had the time. I've been listening to a lot of country music myself. Yeah. So, I think that I think we just have to kind of realign our plans and our dreams, and just we're just on hold currently. If you can survive it, if you can get help from the government, then great. If you need to make some extra money doing whatever, then just do it, and don't. I'd recommend people just get on with it and just do it, and don't be shy or bashful or too proud to difficult times.
Absolutely. I mean, even the consumption of our music is changing now, which I'm a little bit worried. And actually, I always thought about you, and I want to know what you think about when you see, or how do you feel about these new live streams? Everyone makes a super nice staging, new light to create a vibe, and this is something absolutely not new for you, because you did it first, like you said before. You're always ahead of your times. So how do you feel about it? That people now thinking that visualizing and staging is same important than music, which was always for you.
I think that there was an initial burst of energy in that world in March and April, where people were like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're not going to be playing clubs, but I've got to stay connected to my fans, and I need to be doing something to." And I think that's fine. I think that the whole virtual reality thing is a little bit of a red herring. I think that. The organisations that were creating these VR experiences kind of didn't really take into account the fact that not many people in our world actually own VR equipment, headsets and whatnot. So I think that was a little bit of a I don't think that really worked out. I mean, maybe it will come around again in a better format. But personally, I live on the top of a mountain with pretty poor Wi-Fi signal, so I was a bit concerned about, entering into the live stream DJ set world, because the last thing I wanted was to be like, shaky, kind of getting cut off every 2 minutes. And I did two LazPod live shows. I thought that was a nice kind of format to experiment with. And I sat in the garden and played a bunch of music, and that was a nice thing to do. And then I discovered. A couple of programs that I've never really played around with before, in terms of like making like a creative visual treatments over the top of something that's pretty boring, i.e. me sitting in a well playing music. So then I started to like film around the garden, and the donkeys and the goats and like insects that are eating in the flowers, and then put some crazy colours and psychedelic madness over the top of it. So I got pretty creative with that, but I just thought, I'm probably going to come do some of that again. But
honestly, you managed always to have the focus more on the art and your creativity, and rather than a commercial progress. If I see this now on the live stream, sometimes I think, okay, I read a book or whatever.
Yeah, no, I did a live stream for Desert Hearts TV on Twitch a few weeks ago, and they have a thing that when you're playing, you have the option as a viewer to donate a tip to the DJ.
I like this.
I thought I'd like it, but then I thought about it, and I was really uncomfortable about it, because I felt like, I'm not working in a bar.
Yeah, but especially in America, or no, in South America, it's like this. You know, it was back in the days. Maybe you remember this. When you played, they brought you $1 or like even if you were good, $100 on the DJ booth. It was in South America, I think.
I think I actually got offered quite a lot of money once to play.
Sorry.
To play certain records, which I, refused to take it because it just felt so weird. But yeah, I've never been the best businessman. Right, so the opportunity to make some money, I'm always a bit like, I don't feel very comfortable with that.
Yeah, but I think we have to think about this donating button. I talk to many colleagues, and I think it's nothing bad because of the consumption of the music is now changing, and this is not good. When I had this talk with Chris Liebing, for example. You go to a shop, you bought like a maxi single for $10, and you had 2 tracks on it. Nowadays it doesn't matter, but. 2009, you moved to LA. Again, a story where you were ahead of your time because it was way before the whole Burning Man-ish, American bohemian hype came over to Europe. And maybe it was actually also you who invented this. Why actually you moved to LA? I had no idea.
Okay, I'll tell you. I was touring in the States in 2008 and... I'd just broken up with my ex in the UK, and I was touring in the US, and I was toying around with the idea of just realising that for the first time in my life I was like I had the opportunity to move anywhere in the world, and I hadn't really considered it before. And a lot of friends had been moving to Berlin and stuff, and or Paris or whatever, and I was like, I'd never really considered it before. And then I was in the US, and I was playing a party in Denver, and. An after party, and I had to get a flight early that afternoon, and so the driver picked me up at the after party, and then had to drive me directly to the airport. And on the way to the airport, we drove through this park, and there were just like thousands of cars parked in this park. And I said, what's going on here? And the driver said, it's this Senator Barack Obama is doing one of his campaign trails today here in Denver in the park. And I was like, look, because I've been following that quite a bit, and I was like, can you just pull over? I'd love to just run in. And I just ran into the park, and I caught the last 5 minutes, and 100,000 people, just like, it was electric, the vibe, the atmosphere, and it was just coming in with, yes, we can, and together we can change the world, and, and I just got swept up in the euphoria of that, and I just figured, you know what? This guy is one of the first people in global politics that's actually given me some feeling of excitement. That something actually is going to change, and we're going to make the world a better place. So I thought, okay. So at that same time, I'd just been having a bit of a problem with the label. Distributor had gone under, and we lost a bunch of money, and I had to put the label into. Liquidation and then buy it back from it was the most ridiculous situation ever, and it was so unfair and unfortunate. And I didn't have any money, and had some friends in LA who were thinking to start a label, and they were looking for some help, the Culprit guys, and they had a backer, and he said, listen, if you come over to LA, if you're really thinking about LA, if you want to come over, we'll help you out, and you can help us out. And so I helped them kind of set up their label and set up shop there in LA. And I guess soon went to Burning Man for the first time, and I could sense like a start of a new underground movement in America, because I've been touring around for a while, and I could really feel it really coming. And so then EDC offered me a stage, the first underground, house techno stage that it had really. And it was in the small corner of EDC, Vegas and San Francisco, and it wasn't very successful. But I took with me like Jamie and Art Department. I think Seth came. And so I guess I just started like doing, US focused stuff, and after 6 years I felt that I'd like done it, and I wanted to move back to Europe, and almost moved here, but then I chose Italy. So.
I mean, I don't have to ask you how you see the situation in the US now, and I know you would not probably move there.
No.
Me neither. But how do you see US is quite hard now. How do you see the club scene after all this? For me, I don't know if I really want to go back and play in the US, if I can, if there's a chance anyway.
Well, I can tell you that Space Miami have just announced that they're going to reopen at the end of October, but to 25% capacity, mainly tables, I guess. Mm-hmm. But that's a start, it's a step in the right direction. But I think that's because the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, has said that he wants, the whole place to reopen. So I think it's a very worrying time. I think that not just in America, but I think globally, unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of our favourite clubs.
Absolutely.
I've been trying to do my bit recently to help out where I can, and going to play at places that I really like,
You have to support each other now. This is absolutely clear. Yeah, and thank you, because you have to support is a good word, because you are here actually in Berlin, because you're playing today, not tonight.
I'm so excited.
We have so nice play times now, 6 to 10. This is wonderful. This is something I really like.
In bed by 11.
I really miss the lack of sleep sometimes, but it's quite cool. I get used to this, actually.
I'm really looking forward to it, actually, today. I feel like I haven't been in Berlin for a little while.
It's changed also, yeah?
Yeah. And, I was like, well, how many people were allowed at the party today? It's 350. I'm like, wow, that's the most people I've played to all year. It's amazing.
So probably 351, because I would come sneak in. Thank you, Damian. This was great. And wonderful that you're here and that you took the time.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure to see you, Anja.
Super. Tschüss.
Club Room Backstage.
Produced at Blackout Studios.